Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in the journey of purpose, today, I come to speak to the part of you that is hungry for more. Not more noise, not more attention, not more applause, but more growth, more depth, and more destiny. The world celebrates the loud, but the wise build in silence. My friends, let your life speak. Even when your mouth is closed, build your habits in private, form your character in the dark. Plant seeds where no one is watching. Because in time the fruit will show, and it will speak for you, and when it does, you will not have to shout. Because greatness whispers, and the world listens, destiny is not discovered in noise. It is developed in stillness. That truth will offend a busy world, but liberate a focused soul. In a time where distraction is currency and noise is a lifestyle, silence has become a lost art. But anyone who has ever touched greatness, anyone who has ever fulfilled a divine purpose, knows that the most powerful transformations never happen in public. They happen when the world is unaware and heaven is watching. You will never walk in the fullness of your calling until you learn how to get still long enough to hear the whisper of God above the shouts of men. Noise is not just volume. It is anything that interrupts clarity. And in this generation, clarity is rare because silence is rare. We are so quick to fill every moment with stimulation, every pause with sound, every gap with distraction, that we've lost the ability to sit with ourselves and face what is really going on inside. But destiny, real heaven, breathed legacy, shifting destiny, is not a product of performance, it is the result of preparation in stillness. You can't rush purpose, and you can't fake development. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of order. The seed of your future is planted in the soil of your private life. And what grows in your spirit when nobody is watching is what will sustain you when everybody is watching. That's why God often hides you before he uses you. He knows that if you get exposed too early, the applause will drown out his voice. If your roots are shallow, the stage will collapse you. So he pulls you into seasons of obscurity, not to punish you, but to protect the promise inside you. You think you're being delayed, but really, you're being developed. You're learning how to live from the inside out, not the outside in. You're learning how to lead yourself before you ever lead others. Stillness teaches you to be honest. You begin to confront the parts of you that applause cannot heal. You begin to notice your motives. You begin to realize that what you thought was ambition was actually anxiety. That what you called calling was actually comparison. You begin to separate the voice of your soul from the voice of your spirit. And in that stillness, you finally begin to hear what matters. You stop reacting to everything around you and begin responding to the truth within you. You stop living off the opinions of others and start living by the revelation of purpose. Destiny is not discovered by chasing every opportunity or posting every achievement. It's found in those sacred, quiet moments when you are stripped of performance and reputation. It's found in those hours before dawn when the world is asleep and you are awake wrestling with God and your calling. It's found in solitude where nobody knows your name, but heaven knows your voice. If you study the lives of every world changer, every true leader, every person who shifted culture or history, you'll find a pattern. They all went through a season of silence, a season where they were invisible to people, but visible to purpose. Moses found his assignment not in Pharaoh's palace, but on the backside of the desert. David was anointed in a field while forgotten by his own father. Jesus prepared in obscurity for 30 years before revealing his mission in 3. What does that tell you? The time you spend in silence is not wasted. It's where the foundation is laid. It's where character is built. It's where purity is tested. Because what you can't conquer in the dark, you won't be able to handle in the light. Some of you are frustrated right now because you feel like you've been overlooked. You've been faithful, you've been diligent, you've been working in silence, and still the doors haven't opened. But hear this, silence is not evidence of abandonment. It is often the proof of intimacy. God hides the things he treasures most. Diamonds are found deep in the earth. Pearls are formed in pressure and darkness. oil is pressed in silence, and when the time is right, what has been hidden will be revealed, not to impress the world, but to impact it. So do not despise the stillness, do not fear the quiet seasons. That is where the shaping happens. That is where the noise dies and your real name is heard. Your title may be unknown, your platform may be small, but your destiny is not in the hands of men. It is in the hands of the one who knit you together in the secret place. Let him finish what he started in you. Let the process run its full course. Don't seek exposure, seek effectiveness. Don't chase platforms, chase presence. Because when you emerge from stillness, you will not just have information, you will carry transformation. When a person learns how to develop themselves in stillness, they become dangerous, not to people, but to mediocrity, because they are no longer moved by applause, nor crushed by silence. They walk with a power that was born in obscurity and tested in time. And when they speak, the room shifts, not because they are loud, but because they are deep, not because they are seen, but because they have seen. They've seen who they are, and more importantly, they've seen who they are not. So I say again, destiny is not discovered in noise. It is developed in stillness. Guard your silence. Cherish your hidden season, because everything loud is not strong, and everything quiet is not weak. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one God is preparing the most. What you build in silence will speak louder than anything you say. Because while words can be forgotten and speeches can fade, a life of integrity will echo through generations. In this world of endless opinions and constant talking, we've been conditioned to believe that our value is found in what we declare, but there is a higher truth. You don't need to explain yourself when your results speak. You don't have to defend your vision when your life proves it. A tree doesn't need to convince anyone it's growing. It simply keeps reaching toward the sky, and in time its fruit answers every question. Many people are busy announcing plans they've never worked on. They're loud with ideas and quiet with discipline. They want the rewards of commitment without the price of consistency. They want to be known before they've become. But greatness is not built by making noise. It's built by making progress, and progress is often quiet. It looks like showing up every day when no one is clapping. It looks like grinding in the early morning when no one is watching. It looks like failing in private and refusing to quit. That kind of building, the kind you do when no one sees, when no one affirms, when no one understands, is the kind that outlasts storms and critics alike. You can say a lot and still mean very little. But when your work speaks for you, your silence becomes more powerful than someone else's shouting. The problem is, we often want credit before we've earned credibility. But credibility is not something you demand, it's something you become. And you become it through the hard work done in the quiet places, where it's just you, your vision, your discipline, and your God. That's where you build what the world cannot take from you. Because anything you build just to be seen can be destroyed by the same crowd that celebrated it. But what you build in silence is rooted. It is deeper than applause. It is anchored in purpose. Real builders don't waste time arguing. They don't waste energy trying to prove themselves. They understand that buildings don't argue. They stand. Your life should not be a debate. It should be a demonstration. Let people talk. Let them assume. Let them question your silence. While they gossip, you build. While they guess, you grow. While they watch for a performance, you prepare for purpose. Because when your moment comes and your fruit begins to show, they won't be able to deny what God did in you, whether they like it or not. Too often we are tempted to announce what should still be maturing. We show blueprints before we lay foundations. We release things before they're ready, and we wonder why they don't last. The truth is, anything released too soon will struggle to survive. Premature exposure kills undeveloped purpose. And that's why silence is protection. It gives you time to grow into what you carry. It gives your vision room to take root. You don't need to post every step. You don't need to tell every detail. The more sacred something is, the more protection it requires. You don't hang crown jewels on the street, and you don't display destiny while it's still forming. Keep building, keep quiet, Let the work prove the worth. There is something holy about private progress. It keeps your motives pure, because when you're not building for attention, you're free from the addiction to applause. You're not trying to impress people. You're trying to obey God. You're not moved by trends. You're anchored in truth. And that kind of life produces results that speak long after you're gone, results that shift atmospheres, results that impact generations, results that weren't built in a rush, but were forged in the fire of discipline, faith, and stillness. Look at the lives that shaped history. They weren't built on public attention. They were built in seasons of preparation. Look at Joseph. He was prepared in prison long before he spoke in the palace. Look at Nehemiah. He rebuilt the wall in silence before it ever became a victory. Look at Jesus. 30 years of silence for 3 years of ministry that changed the world. God is not rushed by man's clock. He's not impressed with noise. He's looking for those who are willing to build in silence until the fruit can speak louder than their mouths. Some of the most powerful people you'll ever meet are the ones who say little and do much. They don't brag, they don't boast, they just build. They don't have to prove they are anointed. The results say it. They don't have to scream about their calling. Their consistency confirms it, because when the work speaks, you don't have to. So be careful not to waste your energy on explanations. Be careful not to trade the depth of your process for the shallowness of attention. The same crowd that claps when you rise may mock you when you fall. But if you build it with God, and you build it in silence, nothing and no one can take it down. Keep your head down, keep your heart pure, keep your hands steady, and when the time comes, what you built in the quiet will thunder louder than anything you could ever say. Purpose doesn't panic. It doesn't rush. It doesn't scramble to keep up with trends or bend to the pressure of the moment. Purpose walks, steady, sure, and deeply rooted in conviction. It does not react, it responds. It is not swayed by public opinion nor driven by external urgency, because true purpose is not based on circumstances. It is anchored in eternal truth. It was written before you were born, and it cannot be erased by delay, denial, or disappointment. And once you come into alignment with your purpose, panic no longer has authority over your decisions. The world around you will scream urgency. It will demand that you hurry, compare, compete, and prove yourself. It will tempt you to trade preparation for performance, patience for promotion. But purpose knows the right time. Purpose understands seasons. Just because something is delayed doesn't mean it's denied, and just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's dead. When you know your purpose, you can rest even when nothing seems to be moving. You can wait without worry. You can walk through uncertainty without losing your mind. Why? Because purpose gives you perspective. It reminds you that God is not working on your schedule. He's working on your strength. Panic is a symptom of misalignment. When we are disconnected from purpose, we start relying on pressure. We begin making decisions out of fear, not faith. We chase approval instead of trusting the process. But the moment you reconnect with your purpose, everything changes. You begin to see delay as development. You begin to see closed doors as divine direction. You begin to understand that what looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater. Because purpose is not anxious, it is aware, it knows why you're here, and it's not intimidated by how long it takes to get there. Look at nature. The tallest trees grow the slowest. The deepest rivers make the least noise. What's real doesn't rush. It matures, and you must understand, your purpose is not just about where you're going. It's about who you're becoming on the way. That's why panic has no place in the life of a person who is rooted in purpose. When you are being shaped by something bigger than you, you begin to trust that even your waiting is working. Even the confusion has meaning. Even the silence has instruction. Because nothing is wasted when you're walking in purpose. Not even the pain. People who panic are usually reacting to what they see. But people of purpose are responding to what they know. They've seen the bigger picture. They've heard the whisper of destiny. They know they were born for more than just survival. They've come to understand that purpose is not a feeling. It's an assignment. And that assignment gives you clarity when emotions try to cloud your judgment. You no longer say yes to everything just because it's urgent. You say yes to what aligns. You walk away from good opportunities so you don't miss the right ones. Because panic grabs, but purpose waits. We live in a culture that glorifies speed, but speed without direction is just motion without meaning. You can be moving fast and going nowhere. You can be busy and still be lost. But when you live by purpose, you move with intention. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of how fast can I get there, you ask, who do I need to become before I arrive? Instead of why is it taking so long? You ask, what am I being trained to handle when I get there? That's the voice of purpose. It shifts you from anxiety to alignment. Many people fall into the trap of urgency because they confuse visibility with value. They think if they're not seen, they're not significant. So they rush to be noticed, even if they're not ready. But when you're truly walking in purpose, you understand that the hidden seasons are just as important as the revealed ones. You know that before you ever stand before others, you must be built within. You don't panic when you're not invited to the table, because purpose prepares you to build your own. You don't beg for attention, because you know that when your time comes, nothing and no one will be able to stop what's been appointed for you. There's a peace that comes when you realize you are not in competition with anyone. Purpose is personal, it's tailored, it's custom, fit to your soul, and because of that, you stop measuring your life by someone else's timeline. You stop trying to keep up with people who were never assigned your path. You stop comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. Panic comes from pressure, but peace comes from purpose, and peace is your power. When you walk in peace, you're not shaken by delay. You're not moved by rumors. You're not distracted by detours. You know that the God who gave you the assignment is also managing the calendar. So even when it seems like nothing is happening, something is being built within you. Even when the doors are closed, your character is being shaped. Even when the stage is empty, your spirit is being strengthened. That's why you don't need to panic. That's why you don't need to explain or force or rush. Just keep building, keep preparing, keep praying, because the time is coming when the fullness of purpose will speak for itself. And when that time comes, you will not be surprised. You'll be ready. Delay is not denial. It is development. That one truth can set you free if you let it go deep enough. Too many people give up on what they were born to do because they misunderstood the silence of the process. They thought the delay meant the dream was dead. They thought the pause meant the promise had expired. But the kingdom doesn't work like that. God's timing is not man's timing, and divine preparation does not rush because of human impatience. When heaven schedules your destiny, it also schedules your development. And the wait is not punishment, it is proof that something valuable is being built inside you. The world moves fast, but anything truly valuable takes time. We live in a culture of instant gratification, fast fame, quick results, overnight success. But heaven deals in seasons, not seconds. Seeds must go into the ground, roots must grow before branches stretch. Character must be formed before calling can be fulfilled. And so often, God allows delay not to frustrate you, but to mature you. Because if He gave you everything you asked for today, would you have the strength to sustain it? Would your character be able to carry your gift? Would your humility match your influence? Would your identity be rooted enough to remain unshaken by recognition? Delay is a gift, because it gives time for the foundation to be laid. Some doors are closed right now not because they are never meant to open, but because you're not yet prepared to walk through them. And that's not rejection, it's protection. God never denies what aligns with your purpose, but He will delay it until it's time, because He's not just working on the opportunity. He's working on you. He's refining your motives. He's stretching your patience. He's deepening your understanding. And most of all, He's anchoring your faith, so that when the door does open, you don't fall apart from the weight of the blessing. We don't like to wait because we assume waiting means wasting. But in the hands of God, no waiting season is ever wasted. In fact, the waiting room is often the most sacred place of transformation. That's where you learn to pray when nothing is happening. That's where you develop endurance when the spotlight is off. That's where you discover whether your commitment is based on convenience or conviction. Anyone can shout purpose when doors are flying open, but can you still believe when it's quiet? Can you still trust when there are no signs? Can you keep showing up even when nothing seems to be moving? Delay reveals whether your faith is in the outcome or the one who holds it, and that distinction is everything. Because if your hope is rooted in circumstances, you will always live at the mercy of time. But when your trust is grounded in God's character, you can walk through the slow seasons with peace. You know He's not ignoring you, He's investing in you. He's shaping you into someone who is not only ready to receive the promise, but ready to carry it with honor. Sometimes we want the promise, but we're not ready for the pressure that comes with it. We ask for influence, but haven't learned integrity. We ask for promotion, but haven't developed patience. We ask for platform, but haven't mastered private discipline. And so the delay becomes a teacher. It shows us what still needs to be surrendered. It reveals what must be pruned. It gives us room to grow so that when the promise finally comes, we don't sabotage it with immaturity. If you look closely, you'll find that many of the greatest stories ever written were stories that involved long periods of waiting. Abraham waited decades for a son. Joseph waited in prison for a crime he didn't commit. David waited years between his anointing and his crowning. Even Jesus waited until the fullness of time to begin his ministry. So who are you to think your promise is behind schedule? You are not late. You are being developed. And the longer the preparation, the greater the purpose that's coming. This is why you cannot measure progress only by what you see. Some of the most important work God is doing in your life is happening beneath the surface. It's not visible yet, but that doesn't mean it's not real. It's like the foundation of a building. It takes the longest to lay, but it determines how high you can go. And God is far more interested in how deep you are than how fast you rise. Because speed can impress people, but only depth will sustain legacy. When the promise takes longer than expected, the enemy will whisper that it's over. He'll say you missed it. He'll say you're too late. He'll tell you to settle, but the devil is a liar. What God started in you, He will finish. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are in the middle of construction, and construction takes time. So don't walk away just because the timeline changed. Trust the one who wrote it. Trust that every delay is intentional. Trust that every no is setting you up for a greater yes. So keep walking, keep building. Keep trusting the delay is not a wall, it's a hallway, and if you stay faithful in the hallway, the doors will open when they're supposed to. Not a moment too early, not a second too late, but exactly when you are ready, not just to receive the promise, but to become the kind of person who honors it. Don't announce your move, announce your results. In a world obsessed with visibility, we have confused progress with publicity. People now share plans they haven't committed to, visions they haven't prepared for, and declarations they haven't prayed through. We've mistaken movement for achievement and noise for purpose. But wisdom knows better. Wisdom stays silent until the fruit is ready. Wisdom builds when others broadcast. Wisdom doesn't chase attention. It commands it through results that cannot be denied. Real power doesn't speak first. It shows up last and speaks loudest through outcome. The moment you begin to understand this, your strategy changes. You stop trying to impress and start trying to impact. You stop reacting to every expectation and start responding to divine instruction. You stop explaining yourself, justifying yourself, defending yourself, because you realize that in time, results will explain everything for you. They'll speak for the nights you cried but kept going. They'll speak for the times you were overlooked but stayed faithful. They'll speak for the silence you chose while others were shouting. There is something sacred about moving in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring the process. Not everything is meant to be shared before it's done. Not every seed is ready to be seen. When you speak too early, you invite unnecessary resistance. You give room for opinions that were never meant to shape your journey. You allow doubt to enter places where faith was supposed to grow. And often, we announce things prematurely because we're looking for validation before we've received revelation. But when God gives you something to build, you don't need a crowd. You need clarity. And clarity doesn't come from likes, follows, or feedback. It comes from obedience. We must learn the discipline of the unseen, the wisdom of working while no one is clapping, the strength to keep moving even when no one notices. Because what's built in silence lasts longer, it has deeper roots, it is not designed to impress, it is designed to endure. Many are more concerned with looking successful than being stable, but stability is only found in what's been tested, and testing rarely happens in the spotlight. Testing happens in private. It happens when you feel forgotten. It happens when the promise seems far. That's where the real building is done, not in the posts, not in the press, but in the discipline of daily action. When you live for purpose, you begin to understand that your results are your best argument. You don't need to keep trying to convince people of your calling. You don't need to waste energy trying to explain your decisions. You simply keep building. You simply stay faithful, because sooner or later, the thing you've been working on will speak. The door you've been praying for will open. The change you've been making in silence will manifest. And when it does, those who doubted you will be silenced by the undeniable evidence of what God has done in your life. There is a time to speak, but there is a greater time to produce. Talking is easy. Building is hard. Talking gives a temporary sense of progress, but it produces no lasting change. But building, that takes vision, discipline, and endurance. And when the foundation is strong, you don't have to say much. The work speaks for itself. Your consistency says what your voice never could. Your growth says what your critics never believed. Your transformation says what your past tried to hide. The most powerful moves are often made in silence. Sometimes we announce our plans because we're trying to convince ourselves they're real. We talk about the vision before we submitted it. We post the goal before we've built the grit. But the truth is, purpose doesn't need promotion. It needs preparation. You don't need to show everyone what you're doing. You need to focus on doing it well. The ones who rise the highest are usually the ones who were underestimated the longest. But they didn't need to prove anything. They just stayed aligned. They just stayed faithful. And in the fullness of time, the evidence could not be ignored. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It's the wisdom of knowing that the less you say, the more room you give God to speak through your results. And when God speaks, no one can deny it. No one can block it. No one can twist it. The fruit will testify on your behalf. The open doors will confirm your assignment. The lives you impact will prove that your purpose was never about being seen. It was about being sent. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And if you're still in the process, don't rush it by trying to explain it. Let your fruit do the talking. Let your growth be your voice. Let your results silence every doubt, every critic, every fear. Because when it's time, what you've built in secret will shine in public. And when it does, you won't need to say, "Look at me." The work will say, "God was with me." Protect your peace. It is the soil for your growth. Without peace, you cannot build. Without peace, your thoughts scatter, your focus weakens, and your discernment fades. You can't make clear decisions in the middle of confusion. You can't hear the whisper of purpose when your spirit is surrounded by noise. And yet so many people try to construct their future in the midst of chaos, not realizing that peace is not a luxury. It is a necessity. If you're serious about becoming who you were born to be, then you must guard your peace like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. Peace is not simply the absence of noise. It is the presence of alignment. Peace means your heart, your mind, and your actions are synchronized with your assignment. It doesn't mean everything is easy. It doesn't mean life is perfect. It means you've found a stillness on the inside that circumstances can't steal. And that stillness becomes your strength. It anchors you when everything around you is shifting. It centers you when emotions rise and distractions increase. When your peace is intact, you think clearly, you move wisely, and you grow steadily. Anything that consistently disturbs your peace is too expensive for your purpose. Some people carry chaos, some environments breed confusion, and some habits open the door to anxiety. You must be bold enough to separate from whatever disrupts your clarity. Growth cannot thrive in constant survival mode. If you're always defending, reacting, fixing, or explaining, you're using energy that should be spent building. Your mind needs room to think. Your spirit needs space to hear. Your purpose needs atmosphere to breathe, and peace creates that atmosphere. This is why not every invitation is divine, not every connection is covenant, not every opportunity is healthy. Some things look good but cost you your peace. Some people have potential but drain your spirit. If you want to grow, you must learn to value peace over popularity, purpose over performance. The enemy of your soul does not always show up to destroy you. Sometimes he just comes to distract you. He sends noise dressed as urgency. He sends people who wear you down with confusion, and if you don't discern the strategy, you'll stay busy but barren, surrounded but empty, present but fragmented. Peace requires boundaries. You must set limits for what you allow into your spirit. You cannot consume chaos and expect to create clarity. You cannot scroll through drama and expect to receive revelation. What you allow in your atmosphere will either nourish your growth or strangle it. Protect your mornings, guard your nights, monitor your circle, clean your environment. Silence is not just a sound, it's a discipline. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is turn down the volume of the world so you can turn up the frequency of heaven. Protecting your peace also means confronting your internal battles. It's not just about the noise outside, it's about the unrest inside. There is no point escaping a storm if you're still carrying one within. Peace must begin in your own heart. It comes when you stop rehearsing your failures, when you release the bitterness, when you forgive yourself and others, when you let go of what you cannot change. Growth begins when you no longer allow the weight of yesterday to dictate the pace of today. Your purpose is too important to be held hostage by unresolved wounds. You can only pour out what you carry, and if you're full of anxiety, insecurity, and conflict, then what you produce will reflect that. But when your soul is grounded in peace, everything you create flows from a different spirit. Your words carry more weight, your decisions are more strategic, your relationships become healthier, your mind becomes sharper, your growth becomes sustainable. Peace is the fertile ground where vision takes root and purpose multiplies. Jesus himself often withdrew to quiet places, not because he was weak, but because he was wise. He knew that even power must be refreshed. He understood the importance of stepping away to remain effective. If he needed peace to fulfill his mission, how much more do you? You cannot fight every battle. You are not called to respond to every voice. Maturity is learning when to be silent, when to walk away, when to rest. Some growth does not come through striving, but through stillness. Through learning how to be unbothered, unmoved, and focused, even when life is pulling at you from every direction. Peace is not passive, it is powerful. It doesn't make you soft, it makes you sharp. It protects your creativity. It guards your energy, it sharpens your discernment, and if you want to go far, if you want to last, you must make peace a priority. You must defend it the way others defend their status, because without peace you can't hear God clearly. Without peace you can't grow steadily, and without peace you'll keep making decisions from fear instead of faith. So protect it, whatever it costs, protect it. Don't apologize for choosing quiet. Don't explain your need for space. Don't feel guilty for saying no. You are not being selfish. You are being strategic. You're building something sacred. You're becoming someone powerful, and for that kind of growth, peace is not optional. It is the foundation, it is the soil, and nothing that lasts can grow without it. Humility is the highway to lasting impact. Without it, everything you build will eventually collapse under the weight of self. Pride builds fast, but humility builds deep. Pride rushes toward the spotlight, but humility chooses the secret place. Pride wants to be recognized, but humility wants to be refined. And in a world obsessed with image, the humble are often overlooked. But that's the beauty of humility. It's not about being seen. It's about being solid. It's about becoming the kind of person who can carry greatness without being destroyed by it. Humility doesn't deny your value, it defines it properly. It's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It is the recognition that everything you have, every gift you carry, every opportunity you've been given, has a source beyond you. You didn't create your calling. You didn't manufacture your purpose. You were chosen. You were assigned. And the moment you begin to believe it's about you, you disconnect from the grace that empowers you. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble, not because he wants to punish the prideful, but because pride cannot carry divine weight. If you want to make a temporary impression, let pride lead. But if you want to leave a legacy that outlives you, humility is the only road that will get you there, because humility makes you teachable, it makes you correctable. It keeps your heart soft even when your influence grows. Humility will take you into rooms that talent can't. It will preserve you in storms that charisma cannot endure. It will allow you to rise without losing your soul. And when people ask how you did it, you won't point to your brilliance. You'll point to the one who sustained you through every silent night, every hidden season, every valley you had to cross. Some chase position thinking it brings respect. But impact has never been about titles, it has always been about posture. A low posture before God creates a high reach into people's hearts. The ones who serve deeply, love fully, and listen intently are the ones who shape the culture without shouting. You don't have to scream to shift atmospheres. Humility carries a weight that pride never can. It doesn't need to take credit. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just keeps showing up with open hands, an open heart, and a willingness to be used, however and wherever God chooses. We are often told to market ourselves, to build a brand, to stand out. But heaven doesn't respond to branding. It responds to surrender. God is not looking for stars. He's looking for vessels, and vessels are not called to shine, they're called to pour. You pour when it's inconvenient. You pour when it's unseen. You pour when you're tired. Humility teaches you to keep pouring even when there's no applause, because you're not pouring to be known. You're pouring to be faithful. You're not focused on visibility. You're focused on impact, and true impact is not measured in moments. It's measured in transformation. The enemy of humility is comparison. When you start comparing your journey to others, pride begins to whisper. It tells you to compete instead of collaborate. It tells you to posture instead of serve. But there is no competition in the kingdom of God. Everyone has their own assignment, their own season, their own rhythm. Humility allows you to celebrate others without feeling threatened. It allows you to admire someone's success without questioning your own value. It frees you from the exhausting burden of performing because you realize you're already approved, not because of what you do, but because of who you belong to. Humility also protects your vision. When you are humble, you don't try to make things happen in your own strength. You don't chase influence. You steward responsibility. You don't push your way in. You wait for the right door because you trust that God promotes in His timing. Humility lets you rest while others are running frantically. It gives you the ability to say, "I don't know," without shame. It lets you ask for help without fear. And it ensures that when you arrive at your destination, your soul is still intact. There will always be people who mistake humility for weakness. But the truth is, humility is strength under control. It's the ability to remain grounded when everything around you says you should elevate yourself. It's the discipline to remain silent when your flesh wants to retaliate. It's the wisdom to give honor even when you feel overlooked. It's the maturity to serve others when you feel like you deserve more. And that kind of posture unlocks doors that pride can't even reach. You do not lose yourself when you walk humbly. You find your truest self, because humility peels away the layers of ego and allows you to operate from authenticity. You're no longer trying to be impressive. You're trying to be impactful. You're no longer addicted to attention. You're devoted to your assignment, and when people encounter you, they don't just hear your words. They feel your spirit, because it's not about what you say, it's about who you are. And when humility shapes your heart, your legacy becomes eternal. When you know who you are, you stop proving and start producing. You stop performing for attention and begin moving with intention. Identity anchors your actions. It determines how you respond to criticism, how you handle pressure, and how you manage success. A person who lacks identity is loud, reactive, fragile, but a person rooted in purpose becomes unshakable, not because they have all the answers, but because they are sure of who sent them. When your identity is clear, your direction becomes focused. And in a world full of noise, clarity is power. Most people waste time proving instead of producing. They get caught in cycles of validation, doing things to be seen, saying things to be accepted, chasing approval from people who have no authority over their assignment. But the moment you truly know who you are, you stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for being different. You stop shrinking to fit in or striving to be liked. Because now you understand your value doesn't come from affirmation, it comes from alignment. And when you're aligned with your identity, your fruit will speak louder than your words ever could. You don't need a crowd to confirm what heaven already declared. You don't need everyone to agree with your process when God has already approved your progress. When your confidence is built on who you are and not what you do, you gain the power to move in silence, to grow without applause, and to lead without needing permission. Knowing who you are sets you free from the exhausting habit of proving. It releases you to build, to create, to serve, to rise, not because someone told you to, but because you were born for it. Identity is not just something you inherit, it is something you protect. It's not enough to know who you are, you must refuse to become who you are not. Every day, life will give you an invitation to pretend, to wear a mask, to impress, to perform, to conform. But when you're rooted in identity, you resist those temptations. You don't sell out to fit in. You don't dilute your essence to make others comfortable. You walk boldly, not arrogantly, because humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's walking in the truth of who you were created to be, without needing others to approve it. The enemy doesn't fear your talent, he fears your identity, because once you know who you are, you become unstoppable. That's why his first strategy is always confusion. If he can't destroy you, he'll distract you by causing you to doubt your assignment. That's what he did in the beginning. He didn't attack Eve's actions. He attacked her awareness of who she already was. The moment she believed she needed to become what she already was, she began to strive instead of steward. And striving leads to exhaustion, comparison, and eventually disobedience. But when you know you're already chosen, already called, already equipped, you stop striving and start stewarding. You were never called to prove, only to produce. And production flows from intimacy with your source. You don't need to force results when you're rooted. A tree doesn't prove its identity. It simply bears fruit in season. It doesn't rush. It doesn't compete. It just stays connected to its source, and the fruit becomes inevitable. In the same way, when you stay connected to your purpose, your identity, your assignment, results follow, opportunities follow, impact follows, not because you proved yourself, but because you produced from who you really are. Knowing who you are also teaches you when to speak and when to be silent. You don't owe everyone access to your process. You don't have to answer every critic or prove every step. When you understand your identity, you learn to preserve your energy for what actually matters. You're no longer driven by the pressure to perform. You're led by conviction, not popularity. You no longer need to broadcast your growth. Your growth becomes undeniable. You stop rushing because you understand that timing is tied to purpose. And when the right moment comes, what you've been building in silence will speak for itself. There's a difference between activity and productivity. People who don't know who they are often stay busy, doing, talking, chasing, but identity brings stillness. It brings focus. It allows you to say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things. It gives you the power to leave rooms that flatter you but don't grow you. It gives you wisdom to discern between noise and instruction. Because once you know who you are, not everything deserves your time, your talent, or your truth. Identity also sustains you through seasons of transition, when everything around you changes. Your job, your relationships, your opportunities. Your identity remains the same. You are not what you do. You are not who applauds you. You are not your bank account, your business card, or your background. You are who God says you are. You are chosen. You are appointed. You are crafted with intentionality, purpose, and power, and the more you live from that truth, the less space you give to fear, insecurity, or distraction. So stop proving, stop explaining, stop chasing seats at tables you were never meant to beg for. You don't need to prove you belong, you were sent, and when you move with that understanding, you don't force doors to open, you build your own. You don't compete with others. You collaborate because your lane is already secured. Your time is better spent producing, creating what reflects your calling, living what reflects your truth, building what reflects your legacy. Let the others talk, let them wonder, let them guess. You just keep producing, because fruit doesn't argue, it testifies. So now I leave you with this. You were never created to perform for the world. You were created to fulfill a divine assignment. And that assignment will never require noise, applause, or permission. Only obedience, discipline, and faith. Build yourself quietly. Let your silence be filled with strategy. Let your prayers lay the foundation. Let your consistency write the story. The world may not see you yet, but heaven is watching you build. You don't have to prove anything when you're becoming everything. Your peace is your power. Your humility is your covering. Your purpose is your compass, and your identity is your anchor. Let them talk while you work. Let them doubt while you grow. Let your results speak. Let your fruit testify, and let your life, quietly, faithfully, unshakably, shout the glory of God without ever raising your voice. In the end, legacy is not built in the spotlight. It's built in the secret place. So go there, stay there, build there, because what you build in silence, the world will one day honor in awe. Now rise, not to be seen, but to become. Not to impress, but to impact. Not to announce your strength, but to demonstrate God's. Build quietly, but build boldly, and when your time comes, let your life speak.